Isn't it so lovely to see me whip out the tinfoil again? I hope you miss watching me make a beetle as much as I miss actually making the beetle. This method of encasing the tinfoil base with clay instead of wrapping the clay all around the tinfoil haphazardly, like you've seen me do in the past, and like you've probably done yourself, is much better for keeping the shape of the tinfoil, since this way, we're basically swaddling it like a newborn baby. See, there at the bottom, I'm pinching the two pieces of clay together, and I realize I need to make the abdomen flatter here so that the wings aren't overly protruding on the top when I add them in later. So yeah, I fix that, cut off the excess, do a saucy little pinch here, a naughty little pinch there, cut off the new round of excess caused by all the pinching, and yeah, you get it. You get the point. For all of you who are too good and big brain for social media but not too good to subscribe to me on YouTube, thanks for that, I appreciate you so much. You may have missed that I tried something new. Ooh. Wait, I have a helpful tip. If a piece of your tinfoil mold is poking out like this, simply poke it back in with something small and cylindrical and then plug the hole with some clay. This is a better method than trying to cover the exposed tinfoil with more clay, because you will end up distorting the shape of your piece, and I promise you that pesky piece of tinfoil will keep coming back to haunt you. So, I don't know why I was so blown away that this took me 50 minutes, because this part usually does take a little bit, so don't ask me, man, I don't know. Oh, funny enough, I end up scrapping this part that I worked so hard on. Whoopsie. But hey, that gives me enough time to finish informing you of current events. So, as I was saying, I made not one but two different short videos that I uploaded to TikTok, where everyone loves me and I get a lot of engagement, and Instagram, where everyone hates me and stares menacingly at me from across the street. And in those two videos, I asked everyone to give me as many suggestions as possible on how to make this beetle as artistic and crazy and clusterfucky as possible, and I'll go with the top comments, which so happen to be Starry Night, a beetle, and bismuth. And from there, I made some sketches of shapes and some sketches of designs. The people chose shape 2 and design 1, so okay, that's that. What you just saw was me adding the holes for the legs, which will come up later. And wow, I'm going to be a sander this year. I'm so deadass I'm going to be a sander this year because I got addicted to sanding this beetle. It activated something in my brain. Like, I cannot emphasize enough that sanding this beetle made it look more polished, more professional than any beetle I've ever done, ever. Ooh, don't mind me, I may have added the holes for the legs before baking, but I forgot to add the holes for the wings, so I whipped myself 10 times in the backyard and then added in the holes for the wings and pleaded to the universe that it didn't crack. And it didn't. Look at that. So now I'm adding the wings, and this is something new. I've never done this before. I've never made a beetle with its wings casing open, so I was extremely excited to give that a shot, and it was super easy. First, I laid a flat pancake of clay, but I made sure it was thick and snicka so that it would withstand floating off of the main body without losing its shape. If it threatens to deflate or move or anything while you're working on it, it is too thin, and it'll definitely lose its shape when you bake it. This is also why I had to flatten the abdomen. See, it's all coming full circle. I thought it would be prudent to make the wings like this with them closed onto the bug so that it would look even more realistic when they're in the right position. Once I finished cutting the excess off and making sure they're as even as I can make them with my mortal hands, it was time to start gently prying them open. After that is just selling the illusion by making the slit straighter in shape, cutting away some of the sides, and snipping the bottom of the wings with my scissors as a means of shortening them to make room for the legs, without it looking like the wings are misshapen. I'm like a wizard right now. I'm also using this concave tool that I just discovered its use in the last video to soften the edge of the wings so that they don't have such a sharp edge. I think I added holes for the wire for the head before I baked it, but it's truly anybody's guess. I made this basic head shape and I cut it only so that I would have an even lineup for the antenna and the horns. And once that was done, I used one of my spear tools to make those nice holes for the eyes. And that actually reminds me, I got a suggestion once or twice or thrice to make one of the bug creatures from Hollow Knight. And I think that it would be super fun actually, but I'm not a gamer. But I still live to impress you all. So give me suggestions in the comments of a Hollow Knight bug creature you think that I should make in the future. Okay, thanks. And remember to press the edges of your eyeballs into the socket so that they look more natural. I've deviated from my own norm and I'm adding the wires directly into the head instead of just leaving the holes in the clay because ya mama, that's why. And also, I did realize at this point that I accidentally ossified the beetle with this waste. So I went ahead and fixed that off camera. Onto the horns. I love horned beetles, hence why my very first video was an Atlas beetle, but you don't gotta watch that video. It was very unscripted and questionable. Don't even worry about it. But to be honest, I would love to add horns to literally every beetle I make, but I spend the majority of my time making bugs, trying to make them as true to the source as possible with only a few artistic tweaks, but fuck it. YOLO. I'm gonna start freaking the freak off of these bugs. I don't care. It's my channel. And this is the year I pushed myself artistically, so hell yeah, I'm gonna start morphing bugs together. Watch me make the first stag weevil. I don't know, fuck it, YOLO. Where was I? Standing, of course. Ah, see that puppy looks smooth as shit, don't it? I did 2 rounds of baking for the horns because this part was scary. This was a big job for Elmo. Could I have done the horns all at once? Hell yeah, I could do anything I put my mind to, but this is just easier. I don't have to worry about smooshing parts of it or ruining the symmetry or anything. And after baking that, I took my pliers, bent the antenna parts into shape before... and I put the beetle up to the reference photo so I could size the photo correctly before I sketch out the wings. If it wasn't clear before, if you want to be involved in the next cool community custom I make, follow me on Instagram or on TikTok so that you can participate in the art polls when I post them. But if you're the type who prefers to comment bug suggestions on my YouTube videos, that's totally fine with me too. So, for the wings, I used a stencil to cut out the wing shape from the clay, used that one tool to soften the edges, and bent some wire into shape so that it can be used as the structural backbone for the wings. After gently spooshing it into the clay with my rolling tool, I made a teeny clay stake that I also flattened into roadkill so that I could use it to cover the exposed wire. I flattened it as much as possible with my rolling tool before alternating between my fingers and using one of my blunt edge tools, not sharp edge, blunt edge tools, to sweetly scrape the seams until they were relatively smooth. Of course, I sanded them later. So, funny story, I finished the wings when it occurred to me, I never intended the sketch to be anatomically correct, and now the wings look ridiculously, distractingly huge. So, I sketched a new set of wings that would be the right size for this bug and cut it to shape. And to make sure that they were symmetrical, I laid the first one on top of the second one and cut that out too. And just like that, you never would have known. Of course, I sanded the wing seams where they were smooshed in, re-holed the holes, and stuck them in. I don't know when I did it, I just know I did super glue them at one point. Now, we reattached the leg wires, and we've reached the worst part of the process. Even my editor was like, nah, we gotta cut this shit out, because I chose to make the legs in such an ass-backwards, time-consuming way. I shaped all of the wires into the right shape for the legs, and what I did was, and I also added sharp ends to the wings so that there was more cohesion with the horns. I like that addition. But yeah, what I did was make the thigh part of the leg, baked it, made the calf part of the leg, baked it, then bulked up the calf so that it's pretty and rounded like you see here, and, you guessed it, baked it again. I made the legs in 3 parts like that on purpose, and I realized my mistake as soon as I sent the legs to bake a second time, because at that point, I was over it. Oop. Hulk smash, I guess. I was so over it. Why didn't I just make the full calf shape all at once, you ask? Your mama, that's why. But yeah, when it came to the claws, I wrapped the wire in embroidery thread so the clay would have something to grip onto. I connected the claws to the legs because cutting them out and whittling them into shape like a marble block was much easier and quicker than molding the clay. And after that, I did minimal smoothing, baked, and sanded the sharp edges left over from the minimal smoothing. And now, we implement the design. So, as I said, design 1 is the one that won out, so I got to work sketching out the Starry Night design. Another thing I should mention is that I also put out a poll on color schemes, and everyone chose abalone. But I messed it up here, because as you can see, I unified the palette with silver paint, which did indeed unify the palette, but it wildly desaturated the metallic colors, and I think everyone chose abalone because of the deep metallic colors. So, to all the people who voted, my bad guys. I hope you still like the final paint job anyway, because I loved it. I think this bug is the most beautiful thing I've ever made. The brown here, though, perfectly matched the abalone brown I had in mind, so that worked out swimmingly at least. And if you didn't catch it, I used hot glue to add the thingamajigs to the antenna wires. Lastly, before I get to the real bulk of the design, I primed the edges of everything you see with white paint because we are using metallics here, and metallics tend to be quite thin, and I am not trying to make my life harder. Up first, we lay down the law with a silver base. I thought I'd be different and quirky with a blue moon, but I hated it. Whoopsies. And I know what you might be thinking, damn Sydney, this is so tedious and probably mad time consuming. But if you've been following me for a while, then you should know that this is the same range of time consuming fastidiousness as pointillism, and hence, this was my favorite part. I had such a fun time doing this, I felt like a little girl with a coloring book, and I was so in my zone that I nearly got a parking ticket. I did make the metallics more vibrant again so that you could see the contrast better, but yeah, still pretty pastel. My bad. And adding the stars was such an extra boost of serotonin. It felt like when people make cakes and they finish icing the cake with all the flourishes and whatnot, and then they finally get to the part where they can start adding pearls and other decorative stuff. It was really nice. I didn't try to copy Van Gogh or Van Gogh. I don't know, I'm not a scholar. I didn't try to copy the Nice Young Man Starry Night exactly, but rather I just took inspiration and freehanded all the elements I still wanted to include, such as these quaint little houses and this tree looking thing here. And this would have been the part where I could have made a U-turn and brought back the abalone metallics, and that was my intention, but I didn't want to take away from the Starry Night design with such a distracting midsection, so I continued using the color scheme that I already laid out on the palette. And then, even though you saw me having greens and pinks and purples, I ended up overblending those until it just looked like a murky blue. But I still liked it! I added some highlights to the wings with undiluted metallic blue to tie it together with the eyes and the middle part of the shell there. No, the video isn't over yet, don't get excited. I'm glazing the wings and the legs, but leaving the body for later. I glazed these parts specifically because it's time to add the rhinestones. I placed them first just to ensure I liked 3mm size on the color, which I did, and then I glued them down with good old-fashioned school glue. I did end up using Tacky glue for the legs because it's stronger, so it held up better on the slant, but school glue was great for the flat wings, so. I know the person who originally suggested the beetle wanted me to use beads to do this, but I didn't want it to have holes, and I was afraid of baking them in the oven in case they explode, and bead sculptures are really for air dry clay, which is not my medium. So rhinestones were the closest middle ground I could think of, and man, oh man, are they such a sleigh. I desperately need to add rhinestones to my art again, and if you stick around to see what I make for Valentine's Day, you might make them see a reappearance. Lastly, for the rhinestones, I squeezed them into the middle section there and added the brown colored ones to the legs, as I mentioned earlier. And for my last trick, I bought some abalone inspired Perlex powder to give the shiny body some extra oomph, being careful around the unsaran wrapped middle section. And then I'm done. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, then you might as well subscribe. If you want a bug of your own, the shop link is always in my description. And yeah, thank you so much for your ongoing support, and I hope to see you for the next one. Bye!